Hello, friends. Welcome into an instant reaction of the new A&M SEC schedule in 2024. It is the Loochador podcast brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. They can take care of you. I went there for shoes the other day for the kids, barbecue, you name it. You want to get ready, hunting, camping, they got it all.
Camping. I need to go see if they have some like hiking shoes or some beach shoes maybe.
Yeah, that's the place to go. Billy, let's get into it. You had the info early this morning on TexAgs.com. Let's get right into the home games. Only 3 SEC home games, with the first one that comes to mind, LSU.
Yeah, the schedule release. I like the way the SEC does it. I like the fact that they think they can control leaks when you have a whole conference office and then 16 now different schools, ADs, administrators, football staffs, all the way across. And I like the show. The efforts to keep it that quiet, I think, are just misguided, kind of lame. You know, it's like if anyone tries to kind of abide by that, they're going to get stepped over by other people in the media, and you should just put it out. The show's cool, though. The unveiling, it's not quite a March Madness feel, but I wish everything could be quiet, but competitively we have to go for it because I like the show and I love anything that gets eyeballs to the SEC network is okay by me.
Yep.
Because I don't know how long we've worked with them. You know how I feel about that entire group over there. I think that the conference is so lucky to have a network that does as good a job as they do. And the talent that comes through there, and I say come through because they just always seem to just keep moving up the ladder there. But I don't know. I think what Texas and OU fans are about to realize is what A&M and Missouri fans realize. I guess we didn't walk into the SEC network. That started after the Aggies were in the league, but it's been wonderful. So anyway, I enjoyed the segment tonight, as I always do. But we've been kind of seeing things trickle out from around the conference. Since this morning, really since last night. Chip Brown and put out what we were, segueing into your answer, what we figured was going to happen, what Ross Bjork had continued to, I kept saying he dug a line, and then he dug in and stuck to it, and it was almost like, I say he put himself out there. I think he knew, or he wouldn't have put himself out there. I don't think I know Ross isn't the type to just be reckless and say they're coming here first, because if they didn't, not only, I don't think it doesn't matter what Twitter says and what people say about you. It would have mattered to his constituents in maroon and white, to the people that would say, what the hell happened? We were told by you that game was going to be here, and we were, that was our expectation set by you. So I knew he wasn't just saying that. I also know that you just, in this day and age, I never would just trust anything until it's done. But I'm sure Sankey let him know, this will be handled. And by handled, here's the thing that I think, I was on Feinbaum last week, and everyone took it. I was trying to explain what I thought Ross's thought process was and what some Aggies' thought process was, and everyone took it as me sitting there politicking to have the first game. I love the idea of it being at Kyle. If I had to go to Austin, twist my arm, I'd be on the lake. I'd be going to eat at great restaurants. I'd have a freaking absolute blast. I might go down there this weekend. But I do think this is why somebody asked me, and I finally said, this is why I think it should be at Kyle Field. Didn't have to be. I wouldn't have thrown a wall-eyed fit over it if it wasn't. But Texas A&M, by the time OU and Texas come into the league, will have been a member of the SEC for a dozen seasons. 12 years in this conference. And people misconstrue it as, they think they're owed something. No, it's not owed something, but for a team that's been in your league for 12 years and a game of that magnitude, which not just in this state and in A&M's backyard and Texas' backyard, but throughout the SEC footprint and the whole country, I do think the right thing to do, and it's not like it's necessarily wrong if you don't, but it's just real easy. It's not a hard thing to do to say, you know what, you guys have been in the league for the last 12 years. These guys are coming in new. we'll give you the first home game. Because like a lot of Longhorns pointed out, and it is absolutely true, over time, it's going to be dead even.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's just going to be home and away, home and away. So I think it was, I want to say the right thing to do. It was just real easy to do it that way and show the team that's been in the league 12 years, just say, hey, you guys can get this home game first because it's going to be a really big deal, rather than give the team that's just coming in. That's all it was. And it didn't have to be that way. It wouldn't have been the most egregious thing ever. I just think it was an easy thing to do that you didn't have to really overthink. And I don't think Texas has anything to complain about either, other than I guess they could say, well, the last game was in Kyle Field too.
Different conference.
Different conference and 12 years ago. They should have, if they would have come to SEC with A&M like a smart group, they wouldn't have had the albatross of the Longhorn Network tied around them, then that first game probably would have been in Austin. But again, not a big deal. Longhorn fans seem to think that'll be a cakewalk, just like it seems like they think they'll cakewalk through the entire SEC at this point. All told, though, Nuño, that schedule, as we commence to talking about it, is about as good a schedule as you're ever going to see in the SEC. And I'm not going to use the word easy because it's not and we don't even know what A&M's going to look like. Remember, this is a team coming off 5-7. I think and hope they make a big jump, at least back to where they were, and then hopefully, beyond that, and can go into that year with some momentum. Because if you're not a top 15 team in the country going into that year, that schedule looks brutal. Mm-hmm. But we've also been in this league long enough to know that it is one of the more favorable ones that we will have seen in terms of looking at it ahead of time.
Yep. So the home games, at least SEC home games, LSU, Texas, Missouri. Obviously, you have the non-conference with Notre Dame that year. Away, you've got the neutral site game at Jerry's World for the last time. Arkansas,
Jerry.
Auburn, Florida.
Jerry. Not Jerry's. Not Jerry's.
Oh, that's
kids.
right. I forgot about that. Jerry's kids.
Jerry
World.
Jerry World. Like
Jerry
Dolly World.
Yeah, I wrote down Jerry.
Think
World.
Dolly Parton, not Jerry Lewis. Is it Jerry Lewis?
Yeah. Jerry's good.
Not Jerry Lee Lewis, but Jerry. Yeah.
Yep. Away at Florida and away at Mississippi State. Well, South Carolina. I'm sorry. One more.
Yep. And it's interesting to me when you look at that in its totality that you're sticking with what we presume if they go pods. I don't know that they will now, the way this thing happened last week in Destin or whatever. If they go pods, you presume, and I don't presume, if they go pods, it's almost certainly going to be Mississippi State, LSU, and Texas. So all three of those teams are on there. Also, you're continuing Arkansas and South Carolina. And Arkansas will be in Dallas or Arlington for the last time. And you're just going right back to South Carolina, which is interesting to me that they were still on there. I'm fine with it. Again, but you still, going into year 12 and going into year 13, in 13 years, you still will not have traveled to Lexington, Kentucky to play a football game. And you still would not have had Georgia play at Kyle Field. Yet Georgia will be in Austin this year. I mean, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing with where Kirby has it, but just the fact that in year one, Georgia's going to Austin, and in 13 years they couldn't find a way to get them to Kyle Field shows the ridiculousness of the scheduling model and why it needed to be changed and why it still needs to be fixed to where everyone in the conference sees everyone more regularly and more routinely. So outside of that, I think the biggest thing that stands out when you have LSU, Texas, and Notre Dame on your home schedule, feels a little light without that fourth conference game, but that's every other year in this league. But those three games at the top, I don't know, and I know they've had Bama, Auburn, and, I don't know that I can remember. I guess they had Bama, Jimbo's first year, they had Clemson. They were at Bama and Auburn. I don't know that I've ever seen three bigger games atop an A&M home schedule than the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, the LSU Bayou Bengals, and the Texas Longhorns. That's incredible stuff right there. And that, my friends in Austin and Norman, are why you're in the SEC. And when Texas and OU saw their schedule, I bet their fan bases were really excited, despite 10-plus years of them telling us that the SEC's not any better than the Big 12. Now they're all looking forward to the road trips. They're looking forward to the schedule releases. Their media are all kicking it up in Destin and saying, man, this thing's completely different than what we're used to. Pardon my French, but no shit. That's what I'm sorry. 12 years of saying this, and no one to believe. And you know what's next that they'll be saying? Damn, the football is a whole different level. And look, in fairness, Texas and OU will be a part of the reason why.
Yeah.
Look at their histories. I talk about Texas in the last decade. They haven't been any good. They haven't been relevant. I think their meter's pointing up. How up, we don't know. The last time I saw them take the field, they got smoked by Washington. I think OU's pointing down, but their last 20 years have been up there with basically anyone. So they're coming in and making the best conference that much better. Make no mistake about it. And Texas, in all sports, OU and I guess, football and softball more than anything. But they're still going to come in and realize week in, week out, it's a whole different animal than what you were facing in the Big 12. And the reason I know that is because I've seen it firsthand. And I saw it when I was in there covering the Big 12, as you were, when it was really good before the fade. And I'm just saying they'll realize that, but they'll also enjoy it a great deal because of things like we're talking about today, because of that home schedule, because you look at the road schedule, A&M's going to Jordan-Hare, which was interesting, playing Auburn but not Bama. You're going to the Swamp. But, man, if you look at an SEC road schedule and you say Florida, which is not Urban Meyer's Florida.
Nope.
South Carolina. Arrow pointing up, it's still a lot to prove.
Mississippi State.
Auburn, that'll be a tough one. Hugh Freeze is going to get that going by year 2, but still early in his tenure. And Mississippi State, which I think their arrow is going to be pointing down long term. And regardless, no Georgia, no Tennessee, and no Alabama, and no OU. I mean, am I kind of bummed out no Alabama game? I actually kind of am. But what you're missing is a road trip to Tuscaloosa to face Nick Saban. You're missing Kirby Smart and Georgia. Tennessee seems to be on the cusp there, breaking through. And OU, who knows? But
2 perennial top 5s, a top 10 potentially in Tennessee, and then OU, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule makers, you know how I always say they did you no favors? Remember that year A&M played like 4 number 1s, or I think 3 number 1s and a number 3? The schedule makers did you, it's all relative, but they did you a favor this year. So A&M fans should be not only excited about some of the big names on that schedule, but also going, that could have been a lot worse. I mean, you just throw a Georgia or Bama in there with all that, and it looks a lot worse. Or you replace Mississippi State and Missouri with Tennessee and OU, and things look a hell of a lot less manageable.
Let me just say this, too, because one other team that's not on the list is Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Which means you better beat that ass. Pardon, I try not to say that, but on this, you better do that.
I'm rubbing off on you.
I know.
Yeah, Jimbo, just on a personal level, you're not going to get. And by the way, this A&M 24 team, you look at, that's when this class of, this 22 class goes into year 3. If Wigman ends up being your starting quarterback, he goes into year 3. That is a year you really should look at and say, man, we should really be a strong football team that year. And you're catching Bama and Nick Saban this year and Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin this year. And those have to be very personal to Jimbo.
Mm-hmm.
And he would never sit there and say that. It's just not how he's made up. But I don't even know how much he'd say it in Bright. It's not like he walks around saying, I want to win this one bad. It's just not how he coaches. It's not how he leads his team. But deep down inside, you go, he's got to want those two really bad, because to have to wait a minimum of 2 years to get another crack at him, and imagine Lane Kiffin winning 3 in a row and then having 2 calendar years to talk crap. Ooh, boy. And it's not just Jimbo. It's everyone in the A&M fan base wants those 2 games really badly. And I think in particular, I would say in particular Ole Miss, just because of Kiffin's antics. And not to mention what our friend Hottie Toddy Strohs would do to me on Twitter if they won a game 3, and I had to sit there for 2 years of that nonsense.
Yeah, just go ahead and end that. And then you mentioned the last game at Jerry World. It will go back to
home and home.
Home and
Not
home.
home and home, though, because I don't know.
We may not be.
They won't be
them.
probably playing every year. I mean, but yeah, it will return to a campus game. Neither side has any intention of renewing that neutral site game.
Do you see A&M having any neutral site games moving forward?
I wouldn't say no. It's not been something A&M's just done a lot of. I remember, playing Arizona State in Houston. Me personally, I'd like to see it. Not conference games. I'm not a fan of that. Non-conference, I'm okay with it.
Going to Notre Dame in 2 years.
If Penn State, well, you're talking about road games.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm saying though, if James Franklin, is going to back out of scheduling non-conference games, which he does, and which he has in particular when it came to A&M, and if Jim Harbaugh or not anymore, he's not there. What's the old guy Peterson at Washington used to? I'd ask, why don't we schedule a home and home with UW? That would be pretty cool. Well, he didn't like. He said he would never play any more games in the South in September. Felt like it gave the other team too big an advantage. So I think he did it once in a neutral site maybe. But, yeah, if you could get like a West Coast team at Jerry World, if you're not going to be playing. See, that's why A&M part of why they'd never play in those games, because they already had their game there.
Right.
But
that opens
if you're going to mix in a random one, is it LSU and Florida State that play there this year? Or no, that's in Florida, but LSU's played some games there. Alabama's played some games there.
Yeah.
I believe Auburn. Whatever. There are a lot of teams from the SEC that have played non-conference games early in the season, either in Houston or Dallas. Why not A&M? I'd love to see A&M Washington at Cowboy Stadium in September. I'd love to see, A&M Ohio. Imagine A&M Ohio State there. I mean, these are better home and home, don't get me wrong. But if a team doesn't want to do a home and home and you get a crack to play them in a showcase game in one of your 2 recruiting hotbeds, then by all means do it. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I would too. Any final thoughts on the schedule?
No, I mean, I like it. I like the way it shook out for A&M. I love playing Texas at Kyle Field. There's something, I don't want to say poetic because I don't want it to end the same way. Wouldn't that would be, Longhorn fans would call it poetic, but reprising the series where we last saw, Tucker and the Longhorns celebrating after that 40-yard field goal and sending A&M off into the SEC with that loss, that what they called at the time permanent scoreboard. We knew it wasn't going to be permanent. We didn't know when. I thought they'd meet in at least a meaningful bowl game somewhere along the way. Texas has stunk. A&M's been solid, not spectacular during this run. But I think it's fitting that they resume it right where it left off. I think everybody on both sides will love that. And you look at both teams, I think both teams should be pretty damn good going into 24. The only thing I don't like about it, I would have liked to have seen for 1 year maybe you take off the LSU series and you plug Georgia in there.
Yeah.
Like Georgia at Kyle Field instead of LSU. That to me would have been perfect. But LSU doesn't want to say this, but it's become a rivalry. And it's become a home game rivalry, and it's become hopefully that game starts mattering a lot more. And I think you will see A&M and LSU continue to play every year. So I like the schedule. I have no complaints about it. I think it's fan friendly. I think it's there's some games you just circle and go, oh hell yeah. My only thing would be I don't I don't love the fact that Georgia still hadn't come to Kyle.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Billy.
All right.
All right, that's the Luchador. We'll see you next time. Thank you to Academy Sports and Outdoors.